Mahjong and hello to all of you. Happy New Year. In today's video, I wanted to show you how to make Khao Poon, which is a curry coconut chicken noodle soup that is well known in Laos. This is a very delicious, full of flavor Laos style noodle soup that a lot of Hmong people love to make any time of year for any occasion. So you can typically find this dish being made with different types of proteins, sometimes just chicken, sometimes just fish, and then sometimes pork. Today I'll be showing you the updated version of my older recipe. I do have an old recipe of this, and I've been making this new recipe for the past couple of years now, and I love it. I think it's a little bit better than my old recipe, so I wanted to share it with all of you. This one is made with chicken with the addition of pork, so I'm excited to show you all how to make it because it is so finger-licking, scrumptious, so good. I don't even know how to describe it. I'm like mouth-watering right now talking about it. So let's get to it and I will show you how to make it. Let's go. So let's start out with making the chicken broth first. So here I have some water in a pot. I'm going to be adding some salt. I have here some chicken bouillon powder. I have here one lemongrass leaf bundle. If you don't have this, you can just use one whole stalk of lemongrass. 2 slices of fresh galangal, and it should be about this thick. I have some fresh kaffir lime leaves. And then I'm going to be using one whole brown hen that I bought from a local Asian grocery store. And I highly recommend using a brown hen or a rooster for extra flavor and richness to the broth. I did slice them into bigger chunks like this, place it into the water. And this would be a lot easier for us to cook it all the way through and to help us shred it a little bit easier after it's cooked. So this is skin on, bone on, and everything for extra flavor. Make sure it's submerged in the water, cover it with a lid, and allow this to simmer for about 30 minutes. Halfway through, if you notice any scum on the top here, go ahead and skim it out. And then continue cooking the chicken until it is fully cooked, roughly around 30 minutes. After 30 minutes, I'm going to remove the chicken and place it into a bowl to allow it to cool. Do remove all the aromatics as well. So I'm going to let this chicken cool. Set the chicken broth aside while we prep the other stuff. So before we start the curry saute, I do like to strain out the chili oil bamboo. And this is the chili bamboo that I like to use. This is the Roland brand. I like this brand because the bamboo has a nice texture. It's a little bit sweet, not too salty, and has really good flavor. So if you can find this brand, I highly recommend using this. I am going to be using 2 jars of this and drain this really well. I like to let this sit for about 30 minutes. Next is the curry paste saute. In a really good nonstick pan, I'm going to be adding a couple tablespoons of the chili oil from the bamboo and allow this to heat up. And we're going to be adding some minced garlic along with some finely minced lemongrass. I have some minced up shallots and give this a really good stir for about 1 to 2 minutes. I'm also going to be adding some finely minced up kaffir lime leaves. This is optional, but I do like that extra flavor of the lime leaves in here. Add this in there and saute this for another 2 minutes until everything is softened. Okay, so this looks good. At this point, I'm going to be adding some freshly ground pork. So this is just extra flavor and extra texture to the broth. Add this straight in with the aromatics. Season this with a little bit of salt and saute this until you no longer see any pink. This looks good. So at this point, I'm going to be adding all of the curry paste. So here I have some Nam Ya curry paste, and this is what it looks like. I'm using 3 cans of these. You can find these at a lot of local Asian grocery stores. And some red curry paste. So the red curry paste that I'm using is the Mae Ploy brand. You can use any kind of red curry paste you like, but this one is highly recommended, especially for this noodle soup. Add this straight into the pork, and we're going to saute this for about 3 to 5 minutes to allow the aromatics to bloom. Okay, so this looks good. At this point, I'm going to be adding some coconut cream. So I'm using one whole container of this coconut cream, which is about 1 liter. And this is my favorite brand of coconut that I like to use. I'm going to add this straight into with the curry and pork saute here. Give this a stir and allow this to come to a light simmer. I do like to let this sit and simmer for about 5 minutes to allow the coconut cream to thicken a little bit. And then we're going to transfer this straight into the chicken broth that we made earlier. So carefully add it into the chicken broth here. And we're going to add in the bamboo that I strained for about 30 minutes. And totally optional, but I love adding pork meatballs into the broth as well. So I quarter them and I'm going to place this straight into the broth. And with the chicken that I cooked earlier, I'm going to remove the meat from the bones. I don't mind the skin, so I'm going to keep the skin on. I'm going to put all of the meat into a mortar and pestle and pound this until the meat is completely shredded. And it should look something like this. This is totally optional. You don't have to put it in a mortar and pestle, but I do like the texture of it. So add this straight into the broth. Give this a really good stir and allow this to simmer for about 10 minutes. As it cooks, you'll notice the fat coming to the very top here. It's quite a lot, so I do like to skim it out. And the broth is pretty much ready. So the last seasoning I'm going to add is some fish sauce. Go ahead and taste and adjust the seasonings if you need to. And the broth is pretty much ready. So I do like to let this sit on low heat to keep it warm while I prep the noodles and the toppings. So when it comes to the noodles, I do like to use the thick version vermicelli noodles. And this is the one that I like to buy. Usually most packet will tell you what size of the noodles it is on the front here. So I do like to use the thick version, but you can definitely use any size vermicelli noodles you like. In terms of cooking, just follow the directions on the back of the packet. It's pretty useful. And for the amount of broth that we have, I'm using about 2 packets of this. Once the noodles are cooked, allow this to drain on a colander and set it aside until you're ready to use it. The next thing I'm going to be prepping is the cabbage and herb mix. In this bowl, I have some freshly shredded cabbage, and my favorite way to shred the cabbage is to keep the core on the cabbage here. I'm using a quarter of a really big cabbage and a really good peeler, and I am just going to use a peeler and go around the cabbage and shred the cabbage like this. Keeping the core on will help the cabbage stay intact while you shred. The ratio of cabbage to herb is really up to you, so you can shred as much as you want. I'm also adding some shredded purple cabbage here as well. This is optional, but I do like to add it for extra color. Other than that, it should look something like this. To the cabbage, I'm going to be adding some fresh herbs. So here I have some fresh mint, some fresh diced up green onions, and some cilantro. And I'm going to add all of this straight in with the cabbage. And this is still optional, but I do like to add it in there for extra texture. This is yard-long beans that you can typically find at most local Asian grocery store. And it should look something like this. I just rinse it and just slice it up into smaller pieces like this. And that's pretty much it. Go ahead and give this a really good mix. And the cabbage and herb mix is pretty much done. Other toppings that I do like to add includes banana blossom and some bean sprouts. To prepare the banana blossom, I do like to cut one in half like this and cut off the base and peel off the layers of the buds here. And as you peel, you'll notice the flowers here. Go ahead and remove the flowers because we're not going to be using these. To get to the very center, I'm going to remove the core here and remove all the excess flowers. So all the flowers in the core have been removed. This is what we don't want. So go ahead and discard all of this. And we're just going to be using this part of the banana blossom. And at this point, I'm just going to finely slice it with my knife. And it should look something like this. And banana blossom does like to oxidize, so I do like to keep it in water with a little bit of lime juice. And just leave it in the water as you serve it so that it doesn't oxidize so fast. And that's pretty much it for all the toppings. So we are ready to serve. I'm going to go ahead and add in some vermicelli into my bowl. And the hot broth. Finish it off with the shredded cabbage herb mix, the thinly sliced banana blossom, some bean sprouts, and totally optional, but I do love to add chili oil crisps on the top. And this is my homemade one. If you want the recipe, I'll put the link down below. And that's pretty much it. Give this a really good stir and enjoy this while it is hot and fresh. This noodle soup is so good, so aromatic, it's full of spices, it is comforting and perfect on a cold day. If you do want the whole written recipe, I'll put the link down in the description box so that you can give it a go. So I hope you enjoy this video, give this recipe a try. Until then, I will see you in my next video.